Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let me introduce myself. My name is Fatih Rahman Al-Bantani. My study number is 24051214148. I'm from State University of Surabaya, Faculty of Engineering, and my major is Information System. So, in this video, I will be reviewing a paper. The title is Risk Assessment and Risk Management, Review of Recent Advances on Their Foundation. The author is Terje Aven, University of Stavanger, 2016. The journal is European Journal of Operational Research, volume 2053. The page is 1 until 13 page. So the reviewer is me, Fatih Al-Bantani, from State University of Surabaya on April 2026. So this is what we will cover in this review. The review walks through the paper in 6 major parts. First is background and motivation. Second, risk and science. Third is risk conceptualization. Fourth is uncertainty in risk assessment. And fifth, risk management strategies. And the last is future direction and conclusion. The first is background and motivation. So why this paper was written? Risk assessment and risk management became a formal scientific field only 30 until 40 years ago. It is a young discipline. The core principle from the 1970s and 1980s still form the foundation of the field today. However, the field has grown significantly and many new advances have not yet been fully adopted in practice. The key concern is some current perspective and methods may actually mislead decision makers rather than help them. Purpose of this paper is to review recent advances in the field with a focus on fundamental ideas and thinking behind those advances, not just the technical methods. The paper is written for a general audience, not only for risk experts. Okay, there is two types of risk work. How the risk field is organized. Aven divides risk work into two types. The type 1, specific risk work applying risk assessment to a particular activity or situation. The example is assessing the risk of operating an offshore oil platform or evaluating investment risk in a supply chain. Type 2, generic research developing the concept, theories, frameworks, and methods that can be used across all types of risk situations. The example, defining what risk means or developing better ways to represent uncertainty. This paper focuses on type 2 because improvement at the foundational level have the widest possible impact. They improve all risk work everywhere. So, risk science and knowledge. Is risk analysis a real science? Aven used a four-stage model based on Hanson and Aven 2014 to show how science connects to risk decision. First, evidence gathered from data, testing, and analysis. Second is knowledge-based, accepted truths, and justified belief among experts. Third is broad risk evaluation. Experts assess and summarize the risk. This step mixes science and values. And the last is decision makers review. Final decision, adding policy and value consideration. Adding policy and value consideration. There is an important insight. The line between scientific and value-based is not clean. Risk evaluation by experts cannot be done by non-experts, but they are never completely value-free either. What is knowledge here? Aven argues that in risk science, knowledge means justified belief, and belief supported by a proper scientific process that not necessarily proven truths. What is risk? in SRA definition. So the Society for Risk Analysis, SRA 2015, reviewed many definitions and found that despite differences, they all share the same core. Risk is consequences plus uncertainty. Selected definition from the SRA glossary. The possibility of of an unfortunate occurrence. Second, the consequences of an activity and associated uncertainties. Uncertainty about the severity of the consequences of an activity with respect to something that humans value. Some key takeaway here. Modern risk definition always include the uncertainty dimension. Risk is not just about how bad something could be, but also about how unknown or unpredictable it is. Older approach that define risk purely as expected loss are considered incomplete and potentially misleading. So there is a risk matrix. How do we measure risk? Once risk is defined, we need tools to describe or measure it. Aven presents several options. So the simple is probability X consequences severity triplet from Kaplan and Garrick 1981. Scenario probability and consequences. Extended triplet. Aven's favorite C, Q, and K. C is specified consequences, and K is uncertainty measure, usually probability, and K is a background knowledge supporting C and Q. Finance metrics, there is value at risk, PAR, and conditional value at risk, CVAR. So why key measures to assessment can show the same probability number, but one may be based on solid data while the other is based on raw guess. Without K, decision makers cannot tell the difference. Using expected value alone as a risk measure is insufficient. It hides uncertainty and can lead to poor decision. Then we have uncertainty and risk assessment. Perhaps the most technically rich section of this paper in this slide, right? Uncertainty is at the heart of everything in risk analysis. So how we represent and communicate it matters enormously. So there is two types of uncertainty. First is aleatory uncertainty, natural, irreducible variation. It exists even with perfect knowledge. Example, the exact moment a machine component will fail due to material fatigue. Second is epistemic uncertainty. Uncertainty from a lack of knowledge. It can be reduced by gathering more data, or doing more research. Example, not knowing the failure rate of a brand new component with no performance history. How to represent epistemic uncertainty? The dominant approach is Bayesian subjective probability. Probability as a rational person degree of belief. It is flexible and useful, but has limits when knowledge is very weak. When knowledge is too weak for a single probability, use interval probabilities, possibility theory, or evidence theory. Aven recommend approach report not just probability P, but the pair P and SOK, where SOK is strength of knowledge, capturing how well founded the probability estimate actually is. Okay, finally, model uncertainty is addressed. The uncertainty arising from the fact that our models of the world are necessarily simplified and imperfect. Aven frames this as uncertainty about the model error itself. The difference between what the model predicts and what would actually happen. This is an under-discussed but critically important topic, especially as risk models grow more complex. Okay, the three risk management strategies. How to manage risk? There is three core approach. First, Risk-informed strategy use quantitative risk assessment to make decisions. Decide whether to avoid, reduce, transfer, or retain the risk based on the numbers. Second, cautionary or precautionary strategy built in safety margins, redundancy, and flexibility, especially when uncertainty is high. Act carefully even without full proof of harm. And last third is discursive strategy involves stakeholders. Communicate transparently, reduce ambiguity, and build public trust. The right approach is always a combination of all three, chosen based on the nature and the context of the risk. Risk decisions should also always include a managerial review and judgment that goes beyond the numbers. This is a constant theme throughout the paper. Okay, before we move to robustness, there is one of the most contentious topic in risk management is this precautionary principle, which roughly states that when an activity could cause serious harm and the science is uncertain, precautionary action should be taken even without conclusive proof of harm. Evan engaged with this debate carefully. So, the robustness. Building system that can handle the unexpected. What is robustness? The ability of a system or decision to remain acceptable even when conditions change or parameters are uncertain. Robust optimization find solutions that work well across many possible scenarios rather than optimizing for just one assumed scenario. Core challenges as the trade-off, highly robust solution may sacrifice expected performance, neither too conservative nor too optimistic. So the key questions in robust optimization is, should we guarantee the feasibility of a solution or its performance? Should we model the uncertainty using historical scenarios or mathematical uncertainty sets? Evan's position, robustness analysis should be treated as decision support tools. They inform judgment, but they do not replace it. Always supplement robustness analysis with sensitivity analysis and qualitative reasoning. Next is, okay, wait a second. Have throat. My throat is hurt. So the next is resilience and antifragility. When a system must adapt and recover, resilience is the ability of a system to absorb a disruption and restore its basic function. A resilient system can, Collecnell mentioned it at 2006. Okay, first is respond to threats in a robust and flexible way. Second is monitor its own performance. Third is anticipate future risks. And fourth is learn from experience. High reliability organization, okay, or we mention it as HROAs, achieve resilience through 5 principles. Preoccupation with failure, reluctant to simplify, sensitivity to operation, commitment to resilience, and difference to expertise. Resilience engineering tools for complex systems. There is a from RAM is functional resonance analysis method or STAM, system theoretic accident model and process. Antifragility by Taleb 2012, going beyond resilience. Some systems actually get stronger under stress and uncertainty. Good risk management should aim for this. Important clarification is resilience engineering does not contradict traditional risk management with a broad enough framework. Resilience is simply one part of risk management. So the next is deep uncertainty and black swan. When normal risks, okay, when normal risk methods are not enough. Deep uncertainty occurs when there is no reliable model to use, historical data is insufficient or absent, the boundaries of the problem are unclear. So, real world example pandemic outbreaks, climate tipping points, and emerging technologies. 10 tools for deep uncertainty by Cox in 2012, including robust optimization, Bayesian model averaging, adaptive boosting, and model-free reinforcement learning. Two main strategies. First is find decisions that work across many scenarios. Second is learn and adapt as outcomes unfold, adaptive risk management. And the Black Swans by Taleb in 2007 is extreme events that are unexpected and only understood in hindsight. Three types identified by Aven is first unknown, completely unimaginable beforehand. Second is known unknown, understood in principle but not modeled. Deliberately ignored, known but excluded from the analysis. And then we have risk criteria and ALARPs or ALRP, deciding what level of risk is acceptable. Wait, okay. Risk acceptance criteria define threshold used to decide if a risk level is tolerable. Common in nuclear, aviation, and offshore petroleum industries. Two major problems with probability-based criteria. First, they ignore the knowledge dimension. Two activities with the same probability may have very different levels of understanding and control behind them. Second, they create the wrong incentive. Organizations focus on meeting the criteria rather than genuinely reducing harm. Better approach ALARP principle as low as reasonably practicable. A risk reduction measure must be implemented unless the cost is grossly disproportionate to the benefit gain. ALARP combines both quantitative analysis and qualitative judgment, making it more honest and flexible. Core principle is decisions should be risk-informed, not risk-based. There is always a need for managerial review, what that goes beyond what the number says. Aven also emphasized the need to integrate security type risk. Okay, wait, sorry. Okay, future of risk assessment. We back to the slides where the field needs to go. Massive need from risk assessment as accurate prediction toward honest characterization of knowledge and its limits. Key research challenge. Okay, sorry, wait. Massive need, okay, from risk assessment as accurate prediction toward honest characterization of knowledge and its limits. Okay, there is five key research challenges identified. First is complex system, critical infrastructure, requires new model tools beyond fault risk and event risk. Then emergent risk, situation where background knowledge is weak but warning signal exists. New event types that have never occurred before. And then communication, better ways to visualize the communicate risk information to diverse stakeholders, including non-expert. And then intergenerational risk, what duty of care do we owe to future generation in long-term risk decision? And the last is security risk from intentional actors, terrorism, cyber attacks, need new frameworks, science adversary adapt their behavior. Post 2016 edition, the rise of AI-driven decision making An algorithmic risk system presents new frontiers that this paper does not yet address. Okay, we reach the conclusion. Aven's three main conclusions. First conclusion is the scientific foundation of risk assessment is still fragile in some areas, particularly the widespread use of expected values and probability-only perspective without accounting for the knowledge in dimension is misleading to decision makers and needs to be corrected. Conclusion 2, integrative thinking has been produced stronger, broader frameworks by combining opposing perspectives, such as probabilistic methods and qualitative uncertainty assessment, or traditional risk analysis and resilience engineering. Researchers have created a richer and more useful framework than either approach alone. Conclusion 3, there is a welcome revival of interest in foundational research. This is necessary for the field to meet growing challenges, especially around deep uncertainty, emerging risks, and and complex technological systems. Okay, last is critical reflection. Evaluating the paper strengths and limitation. Strengths, the paper is conceptually rigorous and refuses to treat any single perspective as a final answer. It consistently advocates for both thinking, using probability and qualitative knowledge, risk analysis and resilience, technical assessment and managerial judgment. It is also written to be accessible to reach outside the risk expert community. Limitation is the paper shows a strong self-citation bias. A large portion of references are the author's own previous work, which naturally shapes the perspective presented. Additionally, the paper reflects primarily Norwegian and European industrial context observe petroleum and may underrepresent views from public health, environmental policy, or developing country context. Okay, get pause with 2016. The paper does not address the implication of AI-based risk system, algorithmic decision making, or cyber physical system risk, all of which have become critical new frontiers in the decade science publication. Overall assessment, despite this limitation, the paper scores argument for conceptual precision. Hence, uncertainty representation and integrative thinking remains highly relevant today. Okay, Aven also emphasized the need to integrate security type risks, okay, risks from intentional actors like terrorists or hackers into mainstream risk frameworks. These situations are fundamentally different because they involve adversaries who adapt their behavior in response to the events, making standard probabilistic model inappropriate. Okay, there is additional supporting references. Okay, supporting references and their contribution. Each reference below include a brief explanation with arrow symbol describing what the reference contributes and which part of our paper it supports. This is to show how that additional references are not listed randomly. Each one connects directly to a specific argument or section in this reviewed paper, either by supporting it, extending it, or offering a contrasting perspective. Versus by Aven 2019, the call for a shift from risk to resilience. What does it mean? Risk analysis. This is Aven's own follow-up work. Published 3 years after the review paper, he critically examines whether resilience should replace risk as the organizing concept of the field and concludes it should not, but that both must be integrated. This reinforces and refines and the argument in section 5.3 of the original paper. Next, we have by Linkoff 2018, Changing the Risk Paradigm, a call for adaptive risk governance, environment system, and decision. page 213 until 222. This paper argues for a shift towards adaptive governance in risk management, a framework where decisions are made iteratively and updated as new information becomes available. This directly supports Aven's discussion of adaptive analysis in section 5.4 and strengthens the case for moving away from one-time static risk calculation. Next, we have Baizio, 2018. The future of risk assessment, reliability engineering, and system safety. Okay, page 176 and 190. This paper directly expands on the future direction Aven's calls for direction Aven's call for. Geo argues that risk assessment must evolve to handle complex interconnected systems better and introduce new computational methods for doing so. It supports Aven's point that traditional tools are insufficient for modern challenges. Okay, next from ISO 2018, Risk Management and Guidelines, International Organization for Standardization. This is the updated version of the ISO 2009 standard that Aven frequently references. The 2018 revision places stronger emphasis on leadership integration and the iterative nature of risk management, aligned with Aven's call for adaptive and continuously improving risk frameworks. The last is by Holnagel on 2018, Safety 2 in Practice, Developing the Resilience Potential, Routledge. This book builds directly on the resilience engineering ideas Aven discusses in section 5.3. Holnagel introduced the Safety 2 concept, focusing on understanding why things go right, not just why they go wrong. This extends the resilience and HRO discussion in Aven's paper with practical tools and real-world application. Okay, to conclude, risk assessment, risk management review recent advances on their foundation by Terje Aven is an essential read for anyone working in or studying the risk field. It provides not just a survey methods, but a philosophical and scientific grounding for why those methods work and where they fall short. Thank you for watching this review. The additional supporting references I've drawn before and recommended for deeper exploration are listed. Okay, see you again. Thank you.